Pica Poco Kitchen. Today we're making my mom's pineapple empanadas. Vámonos! Pineapple empanadas have a very special place in my heart because they make me think of my mom. She used to make them when she was young and everybody loved them. So when she had my sister, she was a single mom. She was living with her parents in Culiacan, and she would make these empanadas and sell them outside hospitals, and that's how she made ends meet. My grandfather was very supportive of this idea, and he was a mechanic. So my mom says that he built her a tray out of a gasoline tin that he properly cleaned and shaped, which I find hilarious. It's not that she put the empanadas on the tray, she had them bagged and then placed them. Um, but well, I mean, early 80s, wild. However, um, later in life, she kept making these empanadas until for some reason the recipe vanished and she stopped making them, so she forgot exactly quantities and stuff. So we sat one day to try and figure out which was the closest recipe to what she used to make until we nailed it. And this is what I'm showing you today. It is a very simple recipe but very delicious. It requires just a few ingredients and, in my opinion, is a great gift for Christmas. So, just saying. Let's get cracking because they're very simple to make. So, first, the filling. I'm gonna go for my mom's classic pineapple jam, but you can switch it for any other jam that you like to make or that you even buy and you like. You don't have to make it yourself. You can switch it for any custard, any pastry cream that will uphold the oven. Remember, we're filling them in and then putting them in the oven, or even dulce de leche, which is another one of my favorites. But for now, for the pineapple jam, we're gonna need 350 grams of sugar, half a cup of water, a quarter of a cup of cornstarch, and of course, a nice and mature pineapple. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist doing the pineapple flower dance. But okay, let's peel this baby and go to the stove. Or bring the stove here and you too.
Start by peeling and cleaning your pineapple. Don't get rid of the pineapple skin because you can make tepache with it. I'm gonna link a video where I show you how to do that. Add your sugar to the pineapple in a pot and start heating that up. The sugar will help the pineapple to release its juices. Stir from time to time. I like to add the juice of half a lime to my jam because I find that the acidity of the lime balances the sweetness. Once my pineapple starts to steam, I mix the cornstarch in the half a cup of water. Remember that the cornstarch dissolves in cold water, so it's good to add it to the water before you put it in. The cornstarch is going to help to thicken up the jam. We're going to continue cooking and mixing from time to time until you notice that you can smash the pineapple with a spoon. Then, with the help of an immersion blender, go ahead and mash it up as best as you can, trying to avoid leaving big pieces. You could also use a regular blender for this. Just be careful whenever you're blending anything that is hot. Now that the mixture is nice and smooth, continue cooking until it starts to simmer. As you can see, my jam is now darker and thicker. As it cools down, it's going to continue thickening. I'm going to transfer it into a container and let it sit in the fridge while I make the dough.
For the empanada doughs, we have a very simple recipe, which is basically a pâté sucré, but with the addition of baking powder. This is also very similar way that I do my pie crusts. So I have here 2 cups of flour. I already sifted it. I have 100 grams of fat. In my case, I'm using 70 grams of shortening and 30 grams of lard. I'm doing that because I ran out of shortening. You can do 100 grams of shortening or 100 grams of lard. Any would do, or a mix of them. But I do not recommend butter. When my mom and I were testing which recipe was better, this was the closest to the ones she made. So that's why I'm sticking with this. I have half a cup of water that before I make my dough, I'm gonna add a couple of ice cubes just to keep it really chill. And of course, be careful fishing them out right before you put them in your mixer. I like to do my dough in the food processor. I find that really, uh, it gets a very even texture when you do it that way. I have a third of a cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon just to give it a little bit of warmth, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Very simple dough. We'll just mix everything and let it chill a little bit before we start forming our empanadas.
First, mix your flour with the cinnamon, baking soda, and sugar. And don't forget to always add a pinch of salt. Mix that well. I like to do this before dumping it into my food processor because that way I make sure that the cinnamon is gonna be well dispersed. Now it's time to let the work to the food processor. With flour in, it's time to add the fat. I like to cut it in smaller pieces to avoid getting a big clump of lard or shortening in one side of the bowl. I like to pulse it a couple of times until the fat is well distributed, and when I touch it, it feels like beach sand. Now, be careful when you touch it. Remember that there are very sharp blades inside the food processor. Don't be like me. Now it's time to add the cold water. Add a little bit at a time, as I always say, it's never gonna be the same amount. Add a little bit of water, then pulse 3 times and check your mixture. See if you need to add a little bit more water and continue pulsing. Your dough should be compact when squeezed, but shouldn't feel wet. Once you get to that texture, stop adding water no matter how much left you have in your cup. I wish I listened to my own advice because I did the opposite. I ended up using almost a half cup, but I should have honestly stopped at a quarter of a cup. My dough ended up too wet, but don't worry, I will show you how to fix it in case that happens to you too. Give it another couple of pulses and then your dough is ready to be shapen into a disc. Dump the dough into your working area. Before you do so, I highly recommend using a piece of clear film so you don't end up covering it. That way it's easier to manipulate. And also you can wrap it and take it straight to the fridge. To fix the wet dough, add a little bit of flour, then using the film, I dough it to incorporate the flour into the dough. Once it's ready, I shaped it into a disc, wrap it up, and put mine in the freezer. After 20 minutes or so, we are ready for the next step. I like to cut it in fourths and use a quarter at a time. I find it that this way is easier to work with. You could only use half of your dough and freeze the rest for next day or next week. This dough lasts very well in the fridge or freezer, in case you want to make it ahead of time. Just take it out of your fridge and let it sit in your counter for 10 minutes and you can start working it. Flour your surface. I'm going to start spreading my dough until it's about 2 millimeters thick. There are different ways to make the empanadas. The one that I use more often is with the circle cutter. I use a 3.5-inch one. Dust it with a little bit of flour and then go ahead and cut circles. It doesn't matter if some of them aren't perfect because this dough is very forgiving, so you can just patch it and in the end you won't be able to notice. I got 3 out of this piece, and with the remaining I'm gonna show you another way to do it. You can just grab some of your dough and make a little ball. Use your tortilla press to make little discs. You could even use a mix of both. First flatten with your press and then make a perfect circle with the cutter. Use a method you feel more comfortable with. It really doesn't make any difference. Now that I'm done with these pieces of dough, I'm gonna continue with the rest. Discs and jam ready, it's time to make our empanadas. Bring your disc to the tray and add a little spoonful of jam. You're gonna be tempted, just like me, to add more. But don't, otherwise you're gonna have some spillage, and that can burn the sides of your empanada. Even though it doesn't look like much, that amount of filling will be enough. You don't need to make any kind of bend in this empanada because the dough is quite resistant. It won't expand a lot, and if you seal them well, you won't have any of your jam coming out. Just fold it in half and press lightly with your fingers around it. It's time to seal the edges. My favorite way is by fork. I will press and get these little lines all around it. This is an easy way to do it. Please forgive my head for coming in the way. And of course, you can always complicate your life a little bit further and use some sort of crimping. I decided to crimp just one and show you. Using two fingers, I'll go around braiding one side of dough over the other, holding the next piece and then pressing back down. And it looks like a little dumpling. Honestly, I'm not a big fan. So I went back to finish the rest with a fork. But do whichever way you want. They'll be fine. Now egg wash all the empanadas and make sure you have your oven ready at 350 Fahrenheit. We're going to be baking them for 15 to 18 minutes. They won't get really brown, just want them a little bit golden. Out of the oven, we have to work a little bit fast. Transfer them into a cooling rack as quickly as you can, and immediately after start dipping them into the sugar. The warmer they are, the better the sugar is gonna stick. Just be careful not to burn yourself. I like to use this whipped cream plastic container that I have because it's wide and deep enough that you can shake the sugar around so it coats the empanada very well. Of course, you could spice up your sugar with cinnamon or ginger or whatever other flavors you want, but I like to keep mine plain sugar. Now that they are all coated, they are ready to be enjoyed.
And here they are. Like I said before, I love gifting these ones for Christmas. You can add them to your cookie box set, or you can make a little box for themselves, or put them in little Christmas bags, however you want to do it, or bring them to the party. Or you know what? Make them for yourself and gift them to yourself because they are truly delicious. This is only half a batch. I only made half a batch because I know I'm going to be eating them non-stop. So I'm saving the other half for later. But so far, I can tell you my kitchen smells delicious. And by the way, suddenly it's Christmas in here. I forgot about it. I haven't done my house yet. And I can wait to dig in. Like I said, these are very versatile. You can fill them with whatever you want, but the most important part of them is that you enjoy them. It's not a lot of filling, but because it's pineapple, it's strong enough that goes perfectly well with the very light texture of the crumble. These are just amazing. I truly love these ones. I hope you make them. And if you do, make yourself a little gasoline tin tray and share them with your friends, just like this video. I'm kidding, by the way, don't do that. Like, subscribe, and be notified. And for more, follow me on the socials. And by the way, I will be jumping more often throughout the month of December in the shorts, bringing you more ideas and recipes for edible gifts for your holiday celebrations. So I hope you are prepared because we're going to be making some yummies that the hardest part is going to be giving them away. So I'll see you soon. Adios, amigues.